I want to ask you this. Do you think Abraham Lincoln is, I wouldn't say even one of, but the most famous president? So, like, George Washington the first, but I almost feel like,
I think
for whatever reason, I feel like Abraham Lincoln, it might be the most famous.
So here's my thing. Abraham Lincoln's my favorite president. Been my favorite president since I was a kid. And even as a kid, I had no idea what he did. I just thought, you read a little bit, and I don't know, whatever. My favorite number is also the 16. That's it.
Yeah.
So like it was
That's funny.
Yeah.
I think, other than slavery, I'm not, he kind of got his run and his life cut short.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what he did was very foundational on, his time and what he could do for his time.
Obviously, I think with Abraham Lincoln, I think when you talk about like who has like the most impact, I think it's 1A, 1B. I think George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are 1A, 1B, and you can say who's B, who's A. I don't care.
Yeah.
I think they're both important.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Connected Fools podcast. I'm your host, Cauy Sprankle. Alongside me, my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Kaleb Snider.
Welcome back to what is this, week 11 now?
It's episode 11, I know.
Crazy. Or episode 11.
Episode 11,
I won't say week 11, but
I just say weeks, it's
probably like
16.
16.
I think we had 2 that didn't work to the microphones.
Somebody was out of town.
Yeah, and 2 were out of town, so we should be on episode 16, I think.
Hey, but we're not counting, we're good.
Yeah,
life's going on.
If we didn't tell everybody, maybe we never know.
Yeah, true.
But, all right, before we dive in, let's pray. We got a great episode ahead of us. Dear Father, Lord, we just thank you for today. Lord, we just thank you for the listeners. Lord, we just thank you that they have a great day and a great week. We pray that we can just be a little bit of enjoyment and maybe a little educational and inspiring, Lord. And we just thank you for everything you give us. We pray that you just continue to live through us, and we're very grateful. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so the last 2 podcasts have ran quite a while. We're pushing 2 hours in the last 2. So we might have to readjust and see where we're at with, segments and stuff like that. So we are probably going to skip ball knowledge, which is not really that big a deal. There's not a ton of sports worth talking about right now. We will be getting into Saturday college games and college football games and then NFL on Sunday. So there will be a good bit of sports coming up.
Absolutely.
But when we can, we're going to cut out that and kind of readjust on what we need to do from here. But
absolutely.
And cut it up. So we're going to get straight into our over-unders. We got some good ones. What we got?
First up, we got self-checkout.
Yeah. So as much as I am not for AI stuff taking our jobs, I will say this one's underrated for me, right? I think, if you're going to a grocery store and you're going to, checkout with, I would say maybe 5-10 items tops, self-checkout is the way to go. Now, if you have a whole cart, I would say you should probably go through a lane where somebody can, the little track, what's it called? I'm talking about the thing that slides on,
conveyor belt?
Yeah, conveyor belt, yeah. That would be nice, but, like Walmart, Kroger, you go there. It's a little bit easier going through a self-checkout. Now, I will say, if you're doing, the automated things when you're at, Wendy's, Taco Bell, that's not very helpful. So, that type of self-checkout usually doesn't work out, but I would say for a grocery store self-checkout, underrated.
I would actually agree with you. I think it's underrated. As like you said, I think when you have not very many items, I don't need a person to scan that for
It's not very self-efficient.
No. Now, and I will say too, I'm not a big fan of that little bit of communication.
Yeah, true.
Because you're if you I've done this at a store where they have to have that security beep.
Right.
So if I bought a Lego decently, I bought a big Lego at Target, and they have a security thing on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't do that myself in self-checkout, so I had to go to a real person for one item.
Right.
And that conversation was that lady, I felt a little judged. She's like, how long is this going to take you? I said, maybe a day. She goes, to build this? And it was a decently sized Lego.
Right.
I'm like, I don't need this. When I'm coming to buy stuff, unless I'm shopping, but that's a rare thing. I know what I want to buy. I want to get it in and out as fast as I can. Yes, I don't mind talking to people, but when I go to the store, I'm not here to chit chat. Let's go. And I think self checkout, you're not talking to anyone.
Yeah, you gonna talk about a Reese's Snickers bar or something like that? Nah.
No.
Like you said, Legos. She's just gonna be like.
It's the same reason why I think Sheetz gas station. I will go stop there, go out of my way to go. Like, obviously here in Etna, like there's like 3 gas stations, but I'll go to Sheetz because they have self checkout, and I can just scan my stuff and go. If you go to like the Dutchess or the BP, or that's the inside, the Dutchess part of BP, you gotta talk like, is this it? I'm like, yes, this is it. Like let's get in and out.
Right.
And I think it's a convenient thing. So I'm
very convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, right there. I'm with you also with the fast food. Like when Wendy's are like, I don't like that because what if they jack it up? Like I want to talk to somebody.
And there have been times where you're in the car and that does, you're like, well, that wasn't it. So you kind of have to roll with it until you get to the window and like, that was not right. Well, I wanted said that to me is very complicated.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I wouldn't say it's better than somebody talking to you. I mean, I think you get.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I didn't want that, but so I would say underrated.
Absolutely. Going to the second one. I think it's a little fan favorite, or not fan, or one of our favorites.
Right.
Fantasy football.
Fantasy football is underrated. Being a sports fan, I love football, but now your Bengals, like the Chiefs, the Bills, like. You're probably just going to watch your team, whereas fantasy football gets you into multiple players, multiple teams that you would probably not necessarily sit down and, watch, I don't know, the Jaguars play or something like that. So I think it helps get other, get people involved in games. I also think it's like everybody does it so much that it gets even non-sports watchers into football. And it's just a great competitive activity, a little bit of rivalry, a little bit of competition with your friends, your family, your peers. I think it's very underrated.
I'm right there with you. I think you're talking to a very person that I've done fantasy football. I think I started doing that when I was like 6th grade maybe.
Yeah.
And and most of the time I've actually played fantasy, I just do it against strangers.
Right.
Obviously last year, one of the leagues I was in was most of the people from our church, or guys from our church. And I think we're going to do that again. I do. We talked about it last night at Young Adults, so that's cool.
I did so good, and then halfway through the season last year.
Yeah, you were like in first place, and then you sucked.
I know, it tanked. It was bad.
But I think we could add more. Like we talked to Ben and stuff, and so I think I'm excited for that. But exactly what you just said, all the reasons, it makes you go, hey, instead of just watching the Bengals play at 1 p.m. on a Sunday, especially with my busy schedule in the fall, like sometimes I miss majority of the games on Sunday, and yes, you might watch the Thursday night, the Monday night, the Sunday night, but now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need this guy to score 20 points for, and like there's a little bit
I gotta see the Dolphins game.
Like it gives you a little bit more. You're watching with a purpose, and that's sometimes fun. Like I remember last year in our church fantasy league, my dad was in it, and like this dude talks so much crap, and I'm like, well, what? No, he goes, my goal is only to beat you, and I said, okay, like
let's go.
So I think
father-son type stuff.
Yeah, so like I think it's it definitely puts us perspective on the game, where I think it makes you watch games that maybe you don't watch. Plus, like you said, like maybe they don't really like sports enough, but like maybe you not dragged, but like, hey, you convinced a buddy to join your league, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't really watch much football, but now they're like, well, I like winning.
Yeah.
And so now you're giving these people a reason to watch football.
Exactly. What's crazy to me is like, we have apps nowadays.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, like fantasy football is not new, so like they would just use like almost like the stats from the night before and tally it up. Like that's very cool.
So what's a little quick story. So when my dad was in high school, he was in a baseball, not football, but he was in a baseball like fantasy league with his teachers.
That's kind of crazy.
And what's funny is a lot of the people that were were still teachers when, like, I had the one teacher, and actually I had two of the teachers. Actually, I might have had, like, most of them. So, like, they were, like, younger people.
Right.
And my dad goes, oh, yeah, like, if you wanted to make a trade, or you had to go to the real, whoever was in charge, the commissioner, you had to go through them. And he goes, like, you had to look at, like, there was books, like, of stats. And I'm like, that's wild.
That's really cool. Yeah, I had to tally up the math, whatever you decide the scoring system to be, and that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, now it's pretty easy. You just, the app resets itself and all that, but it's very cool that there is a little bit of, it's not nothing new, I would say. And, too, like, football is a big one, but, like you say, baseball, basketball, like, there's other fantasy leagues that you can be in different sports, so.
Yeah, I think they have fancy of, like, hockey and
No, I'm sure they have all of them, but I'd say football is the biggest one by far.
for sure.
Yep. Alrighty, next one.
Our last one is fancy restaurants.
Yep, we got fancy restaurants. I'm gonna lean towards overrated. I think, obviously, you're going to dinner, you want good food, and I feel like sometimes it lacks good food because you might be paying for the experience more than anything. Maybe a nicer looking place, maybe it's maybe the hospitality is better, or something like that, where I feel like sometimes with that, the food kind of lacks a little bit. And which, I don't know, that's necessarily done on purpose, or, obviously not every fancy restaurant, the food's not good. But I would say overrated, because I feel like it's an overpay for maybe what's, in my opinion, not that great of food usually, I would say. How about you?
I would say underrated,
Okay.
just because I've had a lot of, like, I've been to some really fancy restaurants, especially here in the last probably like 5-6 years.
Right.
When I got my birthday, like, instead of having parties, it's, hey, we'll take you out to a nice dinner. That's what happens when you're past 20 or whatever.
Right.
And so, like, I will say, like, some of the places I've been, like Ocean's Club or Butcher and Rose,
Okay.
like, those were great. Like, the food, yeah, you're right. Those are some of the best steaks places I've ever had.
Right.
Like, yeah, those are. Now, do I think it's really, like, is it really pricey? Yes, it is.
True.
Like, I still remember, like the thing me and my dad shared was, like, you think, oh, what's pricey? For this one, not the whole meal, for the whole steak was, like, over $200.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was a huge, thing.
Right.
And obviously we both ate it, and I'm like, was it really good? Yes. Am I paying 200? Am I paying that much money? Probably not.
Yeah,
but
not, no.
But and I think about that all the time. Like, when you think about these, just like, and sometimes restaurants as a whole, you're like, okay, is that worth it? Can you make it at home? Sometimes yes.
Fair.
Like at those fancy restaurants, probably not.
Probably not, no.
At least the ones I've been to. Yes, do I agree with you that there are some restaurants out there that are, like, fancy and overpriced, and you're like, that's just okay. I do agree with you with that. But I think for the most part, I've seen it myself. Like, your waiters are a lot better. Like, I've not actually seen a bad waiter at a
fancy restaurant now.
And and you're coming from a person that, like, I get tea, so I put sweetener. These people will come out and, like, collect your trash right, like, they don't want a mess. And I'm like, that's some good service.
I think they do right on it to be a clean looking, obviously elegant looking place together. They're not gonna leave trash out, or, I don't know, it would be good. It would be a lot better hospitality, I would say. So, but I don't know. Also, too, I think add to that is, like, you say like $200. It is kind of fun to brag. Like, hey, dude, spent $200 on dinner, or whatever the price tag. It might be stupid, but it's also fun.
I will also say, am I willing to spend that? Sure. If it's, like, for me, it's gotta be a special.
Right, yeah, for your birthday, for sure, yeah.
No, but what I was going to say, I've never paid that.
No.
I've never taken out somebody and it's like, I think the most I've ever paid for a meal, like, me out of my own pocket, was pushing, like, $70, $80.
Right.
And so, like, I've never looked at a bill and was like, oh my gosh, this is $34. I've never done that.
Yeah.
I've experienced it. I've been, like with my parents or with a bigger party and stuff like that. Sure.
Very true.
But, and so maybe once you're paying the bill, maybe you're like, okay, that's a lot of money. But
Right.
at the same time, and I think this all the time when people complain about, oh my gosh, this is overpriced. You decided to go to the fancy restaurant.
Yeah, you could have ate at home or McDonald's. Yeah,
Like,
something like that.
if you said, hey, let's go out for a special occasion, and you didn't want to go spend that, guess what you could... We live in a great society where, do you want to go spend $50? Or do you want to go... Like, and I think that's always what drives me nuts when I hear it's like, oh my gosh, that cost... For this fancy restaurant, that costs too much money. I'm like, you picked it.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And it's not like it's a secret. You can go online. It shows you the menu where it's like, oh my gosh, that costs...
Yeah, it shows you the price. Yeah, ahead of
Like,
time.
oh my gosh, this steak costs $50.
Right.
Just for the steak. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, if you didn't like that, but you still want steak, they got Texas Roadhouse. I mean, you're like half, right? Now you're
Right.
like paying, 17, 18, 19, 20, but you also get sides a little different, right?
Yeah.
And so there's other options, but I still think fancy restaurants are underrated just because I think for what you get, it is really good.
Yeah,
Like,
and not every day are you gonna... I think you would probably go overrated if you were there all the time.
right.
Yeah, I mean, but
And there's
like you
people-
say, special occasion,
Yeah.
let's do. You know what I
Don't
mean?
get me wrong. Pro athletes are like, hi, I'm eating at this fancy, like once a week. Good for you.
Yeah.
Not me.
Can you imagine being like the quarterback taking out his line, his O-line, and just...
I can't imagine that.
I mean, because I think it's funny you see like the rookies, post their...
Oh, I gotta pay the
receipts.
bill, and it's 20, 30K, and I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But now experiencing some of these times, I'm like, I get it. If
Yeah.
it's $500 for, let's say 2, 3, 4 people, and you're taking out 8 people, and they're big boys,
They're big boys, yeah.
I get it.
And they're not... They're definitely buying stuff on purpose.
Oh, they're
so-
getting, hi, this bottle of champagne is $5,000.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, we'll take your most expensive thing. They ain't even looked at it. Yeah.
They don't even care.
So, those are good. I mean,
Yeah.
not bad.
I think I was literally underrated. I am rarely overrated. I think outside a lot of these over-unders,
Yeah,
I've been a lot of underrated.
true.
But
Well, I think you enjoy stuff. You know what I mean?
I do.
And you don't. I wouldn't say you fall into like the complaining type deal. Where
Rarely.
yeah,
Rarely. If I'm complaining, you got some real problems.
yeah, you better change your ways.
My patient level and what I expect, like my parents always say, like, can you guess how much that was? I'm normally pretty close, and that always shocks them. They're like, because I think they assume like, oh, because I don't always pay for some things, or like you probably don't even know how much that costs. I'm like, no, I'm very awareness. Like my
Yeah.
self-awareness is like very high.
Yeah,
I got some good scales.
you got some spidey senses.
I do.
Yeah,
I say that and how old women are, or actually not just women, how old people are. Like they're like, man, that person looks your age. I'm like, no, that person is late 30s, and then like they'll go to like talk to them and like, yeah, she was 37. I'm like, it's
Look
a
at
gift.
that, look at that.
It's a gift.
yeah. How old do you think you are?
No, me, I would throw people off all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how old is he? Oh, he's 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm 26.
Facial hair changes too.
I know.
I mean, if somebody grows a beard,
I
or they
agree.
and then change it, or
Yeah.
a haircut
Absolutely.
changes a decade off of the person.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
it is
crazy, man.
All right, so guys, hope you enjoyed last week with Ben Jones.
Yeah.
We learned a lot.
He just comes in, that would be freaking
That would be pretty fun if he came in. He is here in the building, but learned a lot about real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, something that I can't get over is when he said you should spend 2.5 times your annual salary.
That's a really good note. I'd never.
It is, but you think about that rule of thumb is hard to go by.
True.
I mean, I was blown away because I was like doing quick math in your head of like what people make, and then times that by 2.5, and what house you would get.
Well,
like,
also,
huh.
I think, sadly, I think that's why it's so hard to go buy a house in this market. You can't go buy a house in this market by yourself. I mean, unless you're like filthy rich and.
Right. Yeah.
But because I'm thinking for myself, I'm like, there's no housing in that for myself. Now,
Right.
if I had a spouse, if I had a wife, or even if she's not making like a crazy amount of money,
Right.
like all of us, still her it's still better than one.
Right.
And so, but I still would say you're still not going to go get a, oh my gosh, this is 300,000. I mean, you're still talking like, dude, you're talking like 150, maybe 160. And let's be real, in Central Ohio, that's either not a very nice house, or you're living in the middle of either in a bad neighborhood or in the country in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And doing that.
True.
And I think it's very interesting.
I think that, like you said, it's balanced. I heard that's the best investment. Double your money, just like that. Just by getting married, double your money. So that's the investment we're trying to get into, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Could use a lady.
Yeah. But that would just blow my mind to just.
Yeah.
What's like you say, yeah, it's. Now, I kind of wonder, obviously, inflation things are. I would like to go back to, like, experience gas, like a quarter a gallon.
Dude.
That's hard to rationalize in my head.
The cheapest gas I've ever gotten in my life was 51 cents.
That's pretty crazy.
Because it was actually the Monday before the shutdown of COVID. So, Wednesday, that happened. The Monday before that, gas was super cheap. It was like $1.50, $1.51, and we had $1 off at like Kroger.
That's awesome.
And I literally got gas. I'm like, I now get it, dude. I filled up my whole tank for like $14.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, wow.
How much more things did you do if fuel was like that? You know what I mean?
Nothing. I wouldn't change my life.
Yeah, I just think but I'm saying think about how much fuel, the price of fuel raises everything. You know?
It does.
Like
food,
trucking and.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it makes your price of food and all that just goes up because obviously they got to evaluate.
Transport it, yeah. So that's crazy. But hopefully you guys learned some stuff from Ben. He's a good mentor and friend of ours, and very funny too. So
yeah, he's a great guy.
All right, let's get into it. We're gonna pick up where we left off from roughly 1830s in American history.
Yes, sir. So today, obviously we're kind of in it was a little weird because obviously you're kind of in a period of time where you're not really doing anything, I would say, crazy. And then you hit into the Civil War. And then after that, you're kind of just, again, in a period of time that's like, it's critical, but maybe like not like the, wow, like that's a popping. So we'll try to get through it.
I was say, you think about the early 1800s, nothing really sticks out to you. You know what I mean? It's just like,
so we'll get into it. So we'll just hop right in. So obviously when you get into 1830s, you're coming off of, just people trying to go out west. Westward expansion became so huge. Obviously, the, like we talked about, I think 2 weeks ago or whatever, Louisiana Purchase was just literally within the last 30 years.
Right.
And so there's a lot of land that, they still wanted people to kind of like take under, and there's a lot of land to claim. And so people were just fleeing left and right. And then Congress, this was, obviously a big thing that I think people talk about. So Congress then passed the Indian Removal Act, which basically allowed the president, who was Andrew Jackson, to basically negotiate with the different tribes to say, hey, if you give up your land, basically on the east coast, east of the Mississippi River, we'll basically just give you land out west. And I think a lot of people think that wasn't right. Now, I mean, obviously back then, I don't know if they really had a choice.
Right.
But I think now people are like, oh, that was terrible. And I'm like, well, yes and no. But at the same time, right, America wanted the land on the east side because that's where a lot of the population is still at. And they're willing to give you this land because it's unsettled. They didn't really know what was out there. And go ahead, Native American.
We'll let you figure it out.
Yeah, you'll figure out. So obviously obviously when this happened, they're pushing a lot of the natives out west.
You don't think of them being east that much, really, do you?
I mean, yeah, you think about nowadays, the only Native Americans that you really think on the east is like where Florida State is, right? They're the Florida State. And that's what happened. So like during that time, a lot of the Native Americans either went south a little bit to Florida or they got forced. And, and you think about a lot of the Native American stuff out west, like obviously they have a big, not following, but they have kind of a bigger impact in like Arizona, New Mexico, a little bit of Utah, not Utah, Nevada, a little bit. But obviously we see why. Like
Right.
obviously this is because of the
They were pushed out.
they were pushed out,
Right.
and during this time you get a very famous event or a famous thing. The Trail of Tears, which is something that people, when they talk about Native Americans, that's something most people either know or should know.
Right.
Obviously just because the Native Americans are traveling from the east to the west and had to go through this long journey, and literally like 4,000 out of like 6,000 died. A lot of death, and I think that's also why it's one of those things that people really get mad about, because it's like, it's not just, oh, you kicked them out, because really I don't know if I would say you traded. Like it's not like you gotta go. Like you did give them something in return, but I think when you look at them and go, a lot of them died. Obviously, I think that's where a lot of people have issues with, in
For sure.
my opinion. Obviously, quite after this, you get to Manifest Destiny, and everybody believes that American settlers were destined to expand the new land out west, and this was very favored by the Democratic Party, who won the key election in 1844. They were very big believers, like, oh, this is our land, like we gotta go sell it or settle it, and just I think they just wanted to keep growing and growing and growing.
Right.
This actually led to the Republic of Texas being annexed. So Texas at the time was not a state. It was kind of its own thing / kind of owned by Mexico. It was kind of both of those things. It was kind of basically Mexico owned it, and then Texas fought for itself. Like you see, like the Battle of Alamo, kind of. So like they defeat Mexico, and then basically America just took it over. So they signed quickly after that. Kind of during that whole time period, you had the Mexican and American War. America kind of had no problem, kind of took care of business.
I was say, you beat Britain, you could probably
you could beat Mexico.
Mexico pretty easy. Yeah.
So they signed a treaty, and basically it gave the United States basically either the rest of California or more of California, and then New Mexico. And now Mexico still got now $15 million. I don't know if I think that's value then. So
I would say probably,
it's probably valued.
What was it for the Louisiana Purchase? It was...
Oh, what was it like? It was a lot.
It came to $380 million, I think, with today's value. So that's still...
It's probably something like that. So obviously Mexico still got something. So that's a little bit of really what was happening during the 30s, and
so just a lot of land settlement and like
just
conquering, I guess. Yeah,
people moving. Well, obviously, as you get into the end of the 1840s, obviously as you get into the 50s and 60s of the 1800s, obviously slavery became a huge thing.
Right.
The northern states were all very anti-slavery. The South was pro-slavery. By the Democrats were like, we need slavery because that's how we're growing our money, right? That's for economic purposes. We need slaves. Those are our workers.
Right.
By 1860, the South had over 4 million slaves.
Holy moly.
Which, if you think about it, you're talking about what? Maybe 7 to 10 states. I mean, that's a lot of slaves.
That's crazy.
So they actually ended up making a compromise, which, doing my research over this and obviously our last show, there's a lot of compromises in the U.S. Like a lot. Like they made a lot of, like, not just, sometimes you think of a compromise now, it's not a famous, like, hey, hey, you give me this, I'll give you that. Compromises happen all the time, but in our history, there's a lot of compromise. So in the Compromise of 1850, which made California a free state, so no slavery, but New Mexico and Utah had no slavery restrictions, so they were allowed to have slavery. Like they were open to slavery if they wanted to. That was the big compromise in 1850. They actually made a new political party to go against slavery. the Republican Party, which is really funny.
That is crazy.
Because, I think the Republican Party, I think a lot of people see that as a very
conservative and like.
Well, no. What they tell you now is it's a very racist party, but when you really go back in history, it's literally the anti-slave party.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's the complete opposite of what they're trying to accuse you of.
That's crazy. I didn't know that was created for that. That's wild.
Yeah,
Good for them.
Yep. And a big thing that led, as you kind of are getting really pre-Civil War, was obviously there was a big Supreme Court case, Dred Scott versus Sanford. This basically ruled that African Americans were not American citizenships.
Right.
Were not American citizens. And I think, little thing, that was a little, like, that was a big deal. And I think just finally, I think people had enough. So in 1860, Abraham Lincoln won the election. He actually was the first Republican. He was the first person in the new party, so he was actually the first Republican president.
That's crazy, yeah.
So soon after he won the election, 7 states seceded from the Union. So they made their own confederacy. So obviously now you have the South. So the Civil War actually officially started on April 12th, 1861, in South Carolina. They had a battle. And when that battle broke out, Lincoln sent a call out for all the other states to send men to protect the Union. After he did that, 4 more states joined the Confederacy. So now you're up to, I think it was 11 states were basically the Confederacy. And, so that now starts the Civil War.
Right.
And back then, obviously, it wasn't like, I love my country. Back then it was like, I love my state. Like, state meant way
more than country.
More. And so you get famous figures like, Robert E. Lee, who was Lincoln's big general for, the country. He was a Virginian. Or the Virginian was now in the South. So now he goes, well, I'm not turning my back on my state.
Right.
So he actually turned his back on his quote-unquote country. And so obviously that leads to, brothers would have to fight brothers.
Right.
Sons and fathers would fight. Because if you lived in a different country, you could say, hey, I lived in Virginia, but hey, I lived in Ohio.
Right.
And so now you're going against each other. So the first big battle of the Civil War was the Battle of Bull Run, and the South actually ended up winning that, which this was very critical in the war, because when the war broke out, I think a lot of the North thought the South wasn't prepared. They thought, this won't even be a war. This is going to be...
I'll be honest, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. I mean, if you think, hold on. We have the Union Army, the National Army against these, rebels, right? Is basically what you thought. Yeah, I'm thinking, these guys aren't, these aren't going to be anything. But since the South went out, won the Battle of the Bull Run, this basically showed both sides, this isn't going to be short.
No,
this is going to be...
knockout, drag out fight.
Yeah, this is going to drag out. And so... you kind of move to the western front of the war. The Union was very successful because there wasn't as much. When you think of the Civil War, I don't think California. You don't really think out west. Lot of the fighting is obviously here on the east. But the Union, held their ground, kind of didn't let anything crazy happen. But they struggled in the east as the South under Robert E. Lee, who was at the time considered the greatest military man. I think the only reason why the South lost is because they didn't have as many people. I really believe that, because I think when you look at their generals, like Robert E. Lee, I actually think they were probably actually better generals.
Yeah,
they just didn't have it. The North just sending reinforcement, and so Robert E. Lee obviously was a great tactician, right? I mean, that's whatever. He was a really good general. So he helped the South win a few battles to just keep the war going. So by the time you get into basically the rest of 1861 and really most of 1862, both sides really just concentrated on getting new troops and training them. So you actually didn't see much fighting, which I did not know that. Because when you think of a war, you think, well, we're just going at our throats. But back then, right, you didn't have trains were very new at this time.
Right.
Boats, even like some of the boats they used were very new. Some of the weapons they used were very, like, they had to get used to that stuff. So that's kind of what happened during those years. So basically one of the things that helped the Union kind of hold its ground was they won a lot of the key battles on the border states. So that's, those states that are like, hey, this is this is the North, this is the South, and then you had like a lot of these border states, kind of like Maryland and stuff.
Right.
So the Union actually won a lot of those. But again, Robert E. Lee prevails. Him and his troops, they battled. They won some battles in late 1862. They won some battles in early 1863. I did not know this actually, which I probably should have because I think I've been there. But the bloodiest day, not battle, the bloodiest day in the Civil War happened on September 17th, 1862, in the Battle of Antietam in Maryland, where 23,000 soldiers died in one day.
One day, that's
in one
insane.
day. And you got to remember, like I said earlier, this could be father versus son. This could be brother versus brother. This could be families and families,
yeah.
And you're killing. And you got to remember, too, like, the thing that people, if you don't remember, why does the Civil War have some of the, like, where the most Americans died? Because both sides are Americans, right? When you go fight in World War I or you go fight in the Revolution, you're not fighting yourself. You're fighting the British. You're fighting whoever. You're fighting people overseas. This whole war, you're Americans. I don't care what they called it. I mean, you ended up losing, and so you all became Americans again. So you're literally Americans versus Americans.
Right.
And so no matter who died, an American died, basically. I know back then, like, oh, no, they're the Confederacy. Yes, but you're still an American.
Yeah, it became wrong.
And so that's kind of wild.
It's kind of hard to imagine, like, if the South did win and, like, split up America, that would be...
It's one of those things I think a lot of historians talk about, or people ask, like, oh, could you imagine, like, if the South won? I mean, America, you're about not quite 100 years in, right? You're like 90 years in.
Right.
You're still a baby, right, to compare to these other long countries. If the South would have won, a country that's making all the right moves, right, or like, very good moves.
Right. That's a big step back.
It's a huge step back. And now you have two separate countries. Like, that destroys any momentum.
Right.
So as we move forward, Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, and freed like 3 million slaves. Obviously, this was a big deal because I would say a lot of the slaves really mostly fought for the North, right? Obviously, they're fighting for their own freedom. And basically, as you move along, the big turning point of the war was the Battle of the Potomac and the Battle of Gettysburg, where the Union won both. And I think, those are, like, I've been to Gettysburg.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've been to where the Battle of the Potomac was, I think. Obviously, bloody battles.
Do you think, I want to ask you this, do you think Abraham Lincoln is, I wouldn't say even one of, but the most famous president? So, like, George Washington the first, but I almost feel like, for whatever reason, I feel like Abraham Lincoln, it might be the most famous.
So here's my thing. Abraham Lincoln's my favorite president. Been my favorite president since I was a kid. And even as a kid, I had no idea what he did. I just thought, you read a little bit, and I don't know, whatever. My favorite number is also the 16. That's it.
Yeah.
So like it was
That's funny.
Yeah.
I think, like, other than slavery, I'm not, he kind of got his run and his life cut short.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what he did was very foundational on, his time and what he could do for his time.
Obviously, I think with Abraham Lincoln, I think when you talk about, like, who has, like, the most impact, I think it's 1A, 1B. I think George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are 1A, 1B. And you can say who's B, who's A. I don't care.
Yeah.
I think they're both important because, like, Washington, you had to start the country.
Sure.
That's really hard. Lincoln, you had to bring the country.
You had to keep it together.
You had to keep it together. You had to bring it back to, you had to keep it together. And I think sometimes keeping it together over starting it is sometimes really hard.
Oh, that'd probably be harder, yeah.
It's probably harder.
Especially like you just said, 23,000 people died in one day fighting. That'd be tough to turn around the troops after that.
And I think they picked the right person. Obviously Lincoln being a former lawyer coming from a very, not the best, very low, story. And
an underdog story, yeah, for sure.
And I think that was really good. Basically, as we move along, so the Union's main general towards the end of the war was Ulysses S. Grant. Basically, once he took the Mississippi River, and then General Sherman captured Atlanta down in Georgia, the war was pretty much over. I mean, the South just didn't, the Union was burning all their main cities, and and
that's the thing is like you think about, let's say obviously they did north winds. It's like, dude, you have to rebuild. You have to. I mean, can't imagine. You say 23,000 soldiers. That's a lot of bodies that you have to somehow manage. I don't know, to just straight up bury them or let them decay.
Well, and here's what's also crazy. In the Battle of Gettysburg is actually one of the top 5 worst American losses in a battle. But again, both sides are Americans. You're losing like 50,000 people in this battle. Now, that's not in a day. Like, that's over, I'm guessing, weeks or whatever.
Right.
Maybe a couple days.
Still too many.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
But anyways, so the war was pretty much over. Lee surrendered in April of 1865. I think if they had the manpower, I think they could have held out. But I think they lost some which is always interesting. What happens if they win the Battle of Gettysburg? What if they win the Battle of the Potomac? Like, all of a sudden, shifts. And I think that would have been interesting. Not saying I think slavery should be around, but I do think when you think just of a battle and war standpoint, it would have been interesting. Does the war just keep going? Like, the North is just keep sending more troops? Like, I don't know. Is it maybe do you think, I think is there a reason out there that, the North maybe wins regardless because they just had so many more troops? I don't know that answer. But he does surrender.
It does seem like, you think about I guess I wouldn't say every battle, but you do feel like at a point the better side seems to win.
I won't always say it's the better side. It's who has more people sometimes.
Real.
Do I think it's who has better now? Sure. I think back then.
Well, I'm not talking about better in terms of fighting still. I'm talking about the better reason to win.
Oh, sometimes.
Does that make sense?
Sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, Britain should have killed us. Beat the tar out of us probably. Because they were better in terms of
they should have been better, yes.
Right. So, but I'm just saying, seems like it was better that America did win that.
Well, my favorite thing in the war, not my favorite thing, but one of my favorite things I say all the time. Winners gets to write the story.
Right, yeah, true.
And that's coaching. If the good team the team that wins, guess what? They get to write the narrative.
And they get to be the good person.
They get to write the narrative. They get to be, we're the worst team, we are the worst attitudes, our coach is a hot mess, but you just want to stay title?
Yeah, who cares, yeah.
We're good. This stuff goes away. If you lose, this stuff
That's even bigger.
Yeah, that stuff comes up. And I think the same thing with wars and battles. And I'm not saying, again, do I agree? Think about Hitler. If Hitler wins, are we sitting in 2026 going, Hitler's the terrible? Who knows? If he wins and takes over the world or takes over all this land, and guess what you're learning what are you learning in America? We're probably not in America, right?
True, yeah.
And so winners gets to tell you what happened.
True, that's right.
And I think that's the same thing. It's if the South wins, now do we go to another war? Maybe. But if the South wins and they're their own country and you're just sitting there going, are you in 2026? And there's, they got slavery down in that country. And it's really just the bottom half of the United States. That would be crazy.
That would be pretty wild.
But yeah, and so it's wild to me. So right after, Lee surrenders. Obviously, the job's not finished, right? You got to restruct. You got to, hey, you guys are coming back to the Union and all that jazz.
What a humbling thing to have to surrender. You think you declare war, you're like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And then you gotta be like, well, on top of everybody dying, now I have to admit we lost. That'd be a tough
Well,
tough thing to do.
and here's what's crazy too is if you think about Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee, like I said, great general, 5-star general, goes with the South. And he probably knows, and if he doesn't, he's probably thinking, I'm better than, like, I was just the general of the whole army. I have to give that up to go fight for my home side. I'm now losing, and now I have to, like, surrender to people that, I won't say it clearly, but are below me.
Yeah,
Like, that's a humbling thing.
That would be very humbling for sure.
But anyways, so right as, reconstruction is needed, obviously, famously, I think a lot of people know this. If you don't know this, shame on you, but we're going to tell you. Obviously, Abraham Lincoln gets assassinated in Ford's Theater. And, people always say, like, as a kid or as a high schooler, well, if I had a time machine, I would go stop that. But I don't know, does that event has to happen to let things go down the way? I don't know. Because I can tell you, how Abraham Lincoln was going to handle Reconstruction over Andrew Johnson, very different. Because Andrew Johnson was more of a Southerner, and he's only been vice president for like a month. Like, he was new. So, like, Lincoln gets reelected in March. Andrew Johnson becomes his vice president.
Yeah.
He gets assassinated in April. So, like, you're talking about a guy that's been on the job for, like, a month.
Yeah.
Is now president. And I don't know if anybody knows, or I don't know if I've read a book and watched a couple, like, movies or documentaries. When John Wilkes Booth killed Lincoln, his posse of, like, 6 or 8 guys, they also were supposed to kill Andrew Johnson, and they were supposed to kill the Secretary of State, Seward. They were supposed to kill all 3 of them.
Mission not accomplished.
And basically the Seward guy is in his bed, recovering from he got in a horse accident. Okay. Like he was in a stable, like in a carry, like a horse and like buggy.
Right. Yeah.
Gets in an accident. This dude has a metal brace on his head because he got like this, and when the guy went to kill him, he's like, he shot at something. His gun misfires, and he goes to stab him, and he's like really fast, and then he leaves. The metal part of like the thing took most of the blow. Guy doesn't die. Andrew Johnson's assassin, the guy that gets himself drunk because he was so nervous. He didn't want to do it. He gets himself drunk at a bar and just backs out. So that's why Andrew Johnson doesn't get...
That's crazy.
And then John Wilkes Booth, who was the leader of this, obviously takes the main guy. And ironically...
So were they supposed to do that at like a similar time?
They all did this at the same time.
Night?
At the same time. Yep. They wanted to sink the
Can you imagine they get back together and go, all right, well, I got Lincoln, and then those guys are like, well...
They all had a plan. There's some really good stuff out there. There's a great movie about the first woman that hosted the meetings.
Okay.
Because her son was like John Wilkes' like second-hand guy. First woman ever to get hanged.
Really?
She gets hanged. You watch the movie. It's gnarly. You kind of feel bad. And they basically fight. They basically should have found her innocent.
Really?
But the judges were all generals, and they wanted the South to pay.
Right. They want to make a statement. Right.
And they lied. Anyways, and then there's a miniseries that talks about the Secretary of War who was in charge of finding all these men. And that series, it's on Apple TV. I forget what it's called, but it's really good. It follows John Wilkes Booth and follows this guy, and it shows you all 3 attacks, right? It shows you, because I think everybody thinks of just Abraham Lincoln gets shot. I think that's a very famous, most people probably know that.
Right.
They might not know where it happens, but I think people don't realize their goal was to take out the big 3,
right.
The president, vice president, and the Secretary of State. And ironically, early in their planning, they were just planning on kidnapping the president. And then quickly, John Wilkes Booth said, let's just kill him.
I was just saying, yeah, what's the point of kidnapping him?
They wanted to trade him. They wanted to trade the president for captured South soldiers. Because again, what did we just talk about? They're running out of men. Why did they lose? because they're running out of men, and so they wanted to
give us 50,000 soldiers for the president right now. All right.
Instead Booth just shot him and crazy. I mean, I think that all the time. Like, what happens if Lincoln doesn't get shot? Do we still do that? Like, was that?
I think it definitely created a pretty big uproar. That's like,
yes,
something has to go down now. It's kind of overstepped.
For sure.
Crazy, yeah.
So that happened. So now Andrew Johnson, who was more the Southern, yes, he's the vice president, was more of a Southerner, went very easier than I think people wanted on the South.
Okay.
So that caused a really uproar. During this time, obviously, railroads were really coming to be developed and were really getting built more. And then in the next 5 years, from 1865 to 1870, we passed the big three amendments dealing with slavery and abolishing it with the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And basically the main reason this happened, in my opinion, is so the radical Republicans, so the people that were basically more on the Lincoln side, they won a lot of elections in 1866, controlled Congress. Basically, like, Andrew Johnson did not want to go through with all this stuff, and they did.
Is that why you said he took it easy on them?
No, he took it easy, hey, like, the radical Republicans wanted to, like, punish, like, we're going to make a statement to the South. Right. And he was like their president from the South, Jefferson Davis. Like, some people are like, we should hang him. Andrew Johnson was like, we'll just throw him in prison and so some of the radical Republicans didn't like that.
I understand, yeah.
Like, they impeached him because they were so upset, and he only did not get impeached by one vote.
Oh.
Yeah.
Close.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So you have the radical Republicans kind of have a little bit of that. They're passing all this legislation with slavery. This is also where you see the KKK emerges, right? Because obviously now you have people in the South that are still upset that slavery is not a thing, and obviously still think that African Americans are less than them. And
which is crazy. I mean, it's just
and another fun fact, interesting, that I think people don't realize, the KKK emerges to oppose the Republicans. And to oppose the Republicans and the African American civil rights. So again, and another compromise of 1877, there was a really, really close election for presidency. So President Hayes, who's from Ohio, Rutherford B. Hayes.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been to Delaware, Hayes,
that's where he's from.
That's what his name kind of after a little bit, where he's from. They picked him as president because it was such a close. They just declared him the president for exchange for federal troops to be removed from the South. That was their deal. If you take away the troops, we'll let your guy be president. Which I'm thinking, that is a crazy way to elect a president.
That is a crazy way. Doesn't sound all that fair either.
No.
I mean...
Yeah, because...
It's a weird deal.
Because here's at the time, too, they didn't control Congress.
No.
Some of the South, some of the Democrats kind of controlled Congress. I'm like, hold on, so you're going to be president, can't do anything, and now you're leaving your troops out of the South. Okay. Yeah, sounds weird. So that happened, so now this allows... So with this movement, the South/Democrats holds a lot of power in Congress. Mm-hmm. They basically say, we're done with Reconstruction. We're done. So Reconstruction ends in 1877. And the South starts to pass some very heavy African-American laws like Jim Crow.
Right.
And that's really where you saw the issues really become is, you think, it's crazy that you think, like, obviously we'll talk about this probably next week, but like really anti like Jim, like people start getting rid of Jim Crow is like in the 1960s, and this starts in the end of 1870s.
Yeah, so
like I didn't realize
almost
like
100 years of this.
like I didn't even realize how long that went on, because you think, oh, we just fought a war to end slavery, we won,
It should be over.
it should
right
be
there.
over with, and obviously the
I mean, that's
South,
pushing 100 years. Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
it's crazy to think about. So we're going to move a little bit, talk about a little bit, and then we'll almost be wrapping this up. So as you move on to like the rest of the 1870s and through the 90s, they call it the Gilt Age. So you saw a lot of Americans are now becoming more wealthy, running more businesses. You're kind of seeing America kind of just like, you're coming out of the Civil War, you're coming out of bad and bloody and all that, and now you're kind of seeing like everyday life is kind of coming up.
You're kind of seeing the American dream.
Yeah, you're kind of seeing what we see of America now. You're kind of see that come up. You kind of see the start of big money people like J.P. Morgan and John Rockefeller. They kind of start coming into play.
Those are heavy hitters.
Those are like some
Rockefeller feels like he would be bigger than the president himself. Like
I think Rockefeller, maybe not right now, but probably give himself probably 10, maybe 20 more years. That dude had enough money he could probably buy the country. Like, that guy was worth billions.
I feel like if you said, hey, president, you rule, but whatever Rockefeller says, you have to look.
Yeah.
I almost feel like Rockefeller was over top of even
Very, very
the
true.
president, how powerful he was.
Also, during this time, a ton of immigrants came from Europe. I mean, you saw just like huge amounts. You know, obviously now they're coming into the workforce and working in maybe not the best living. You know, you're coming into not really. Back then, I mean, if people think your work is sucky now, like back then, the conditions are dirty and
Worse, yeah.
you had to go to work all the time. Like, your working hours could be like 18, 20-hour work days.
That's crazy, yeah.
Kids had to work. Like, there was nothing in place. And so really some of the European people that came over, like, they did that. But because of this, you saw unions kind of come into play, and, people form, factory workers, farmers, stuff like that, kind of was starting to band together to form unions. So that's kind of the first time we saw unions.
Right.
Not ironically, that's actually not the right word, but during this time too, you also saw your second president to get assassinated. So James Garfield from Ohio gets assassinated in 1881. If you want to watch a great little miniseries about him, it's on Netflix. It's really good. It's actually really good. He becomes president because he spoke up. They go to a Republican convention to name the pick to be the Republican president.
Yeah.
And he went to talk. A buddy of his said, "Hey, can you speak highly of me?" James Garfield does this. And a few people were blown away by what he said. And ironically, the whole plan of the convention was to let Grant come back to be president.
Yeah.
So Grant was president, and then Hayes was president. Nobody liked Hayes. Like, Hayes didn't, thought he wasn't, his term wasn't. And so they were trying to get Grant to come back for a third term, like post. And some people didn't like, some people did not like that within the Republican Party. So one guy said, "I vote for Garfield." Like, that's like, watch the show. Like, I vote for Garfield. And so, like, Grant would have like 50 votes. This dude had 30. Garfield had 1 or 2. And you had to have so many votes. They had to keep revoting until one of the people had enough votes. And finally, they did this 60.
So you're saying it had to be unanimous or something?
No.
Okay.
Let's say I forget what the exact number is, but you had to have 270.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So Grant would get 250.
But it wasn't enough.
The other guy got 15. Garfield got 1. Revote. Well, every time the revoting happened, Grant got less, and these people start looking at Garfield. Garfield, after 50, it was a lot. After 20 or so revotes,
Jeez.
finally it was I vote for Garfield. Garfield becomes president, And I think Garfield could, like, watching the show, and maybe it's just they made it look like this. Garfield was just a typical guy from Ohio, country guy from Ohio.
Right.
He was president for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Until he got shot.
Yeah, he does that thing.
And what's crazy is, and the show does a great, or the miniseries does a great job showing this. The guy that shot him only shot him because he was so crazy in the head. He thought Garfield owed him a political position for some reason.
I was going to ask you if he was just a normal dude. I wonder what.
He lost his mind. But so basically, this guy kept meeting up with the president because back then
you could just walk right into the president.
You could literally just wait in line, and you could voice your complaints to the president to his face. I'm like, could you imagine that now? That would not work.
That line would never end.
And so this guy waited and waited and waited, and then he finally met him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much!" Like he loved Garfield, and then Garfield would just not give him a political position or said something, and the guy goes, basically, he got so torqued off, and he ran into the vice president. So back then the Republican Party had like two sides. Well, basically the vice president was like to appease them. Mm-hmm. And so this guy goes, "Fine, I want Arthur to be president." So James Garfield is waiting in the train station, comes up, shoots him. And I forget if he shoots him twice, because at first he gets shot. Like he shoots the gun, and Garfield kind of like looks around like, "Oh, I didn't get hit." And then I forget if he shoots him again. And so here's what's crazy. So he's in a train station, gets shot. I know nobody knows this, but I learned this in the show.
Yeah, cool.
Two doctors come. You have an African American doctor who's done a lot of medical stuff overseas, and you have a white doctor that was very high up. Mm-hmm. The African American doctor basically says, "Hey, we need to use," I forget what he said, like gloves, or we have to like heat the metal before you touch it. No. So he's like, "Hey, he's good." So they go do surgery. Mm-hmm. Back then, the doctors wouldn't wash their hands. They're going into his stuff to try to retrieve the bullet with dirty hands, with not clean equipment. And the African American doctor's like, no, like they've done studies, like we gotta, heat up the equipment, we gotta wash our hands. And they're like, "You don't know anything." James Garfield died not because of the bullets. He died because he got sick.
Bacteria.
He got bacteria. And after he died, the one person said, "I want to after he died, a different doctor said, "Let's examine him."
Yeah.
They said, if you never did surgery on him, the bullets missed every important artery, he probably would have lived. And he goes, he died from infection. And I'm like, that is insane.
Yeah, that would be insane.
And that was
you would have lived from a gunshot wound. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
You miss everything.
Yep. And you died because the doctors were like, no, we know more.
Sounds about right for doctors nowadays, too.
So that's a little side story about a president that, here's the thing, most people...
Yeah, then 3 months in.
What are you most known for? You got shot. Mm-hmm. And here's what's wild. At the end,
you're probably named after a high school, or a high school named after you. And there's Garfield.
Yeah, I think there's a James Garfield High School somewhere.
Yeah.
Here's what's wild. At the end of that miniseries, the guy that shot him goes, he wrote a book. He wrote all of his notes. He's like, "I want to become famous." The wife visits him in jail before he gets hung. He dies, and goes, "Nobody is going to remember who you are." He did not let anybody take his notes. She goes, "My husband could have been the best president ever." But she goes, and on his deathbed, he's like, "Oh, honey, are people going to remember me?" She's like, "Oh yeah, baby." And he dies. She goes, visits the guy, and goes, "I had to lie to my husband on his deathbed." Because she goes, nobody's going to remember my husband because you shot him 3 months into it.
Right.
She goes, if anybody's going to remember him, it's going to be, I forget how she worded it, but basically as a fact.
Yeah.
Who got shot. That's it. And I'm thinking, you're right.
That's
before
funny.
watching that show, What did I know of him? You're from Ohio,
Yeah.
and you got shot. Those are the two things I knew. I didn't even know he was only president for 3 months. Like, that's how little people knows about him. So, yeah, on a tangent, on a random, very probably forgettable president, I will recommend it. It's on Netflix. Very good.
Okay, nice.
So, moving on. You kind of move on a little bit later. Another Ohio president wins election.
What's with us, Dale?
Hey.
We have...
People debate if you count the 8th president as Ohio or Virginia, but he's the tiebreaker. If you vote him as an Ohioan guy, Ohio and Virginia are tied for the most presidents. If you see him as Virginia,
Then they have one more.
They have one more. But Willie McKinley also has a high school after him, McKinley High School. He kind of wins presidency. We fight in the Spanish-American War. Happened in 1898. That lasted for 3 months. America came in, meant business,
Look at us, Dale.
kicked butt, and basically out of this, it was America versus Spain because Spain had a lot of territory. The United States won really easily and acquired the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam, and also the protective rights of Cuba. So, like, hey, we were in charge of protecting them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we won, which is kind of interesting because, like, you think about that today, like, we still kind of own Puerto Rico. Like, it's not a state, but, like, obviously that's a territory. Philippines, I don't believe we still... Maybe we do. I don't know. That and Guam, I don't think so. I don't think so. And obviously Cuba. When you, like, I've been to Cuba twice. They talk about that in their history. They're like, oh yeah, the United States did this, and then, like, we fought for our own independence, and then that was not very good. Like, at the time, you thought that was great, and then that's how the whole dictator thing came along. But okay, bad.
Yeah.
So then, as we reached into, like, the 1900s, the world,
Good times.
like, America becomes, like, the now strongest economy. President McKinley passed a lot of laws to raise tariffs, and that got the gold to be worth more. Like, right now you have all this gold because of the gold rush that's now valued. America's booming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, he gets assassinated, which out of 4 assassinations, 2 of them are Ohio presidents.
That's crazy.
Here's a fun fact. This is crazy. Abraham Lincoln's son obviously was not at Ford's Theater with his dad,
Right.
but he saw his dad. Abraham Lincoln's same son is next to James Garfield in the train station,
No.
and he's at the same conference that William McKinley gets shot at.
That's crazy.
And I'm thinking, this dude,
Dude, you need to stop doing this stuff.
he was a part of the 3 out of the 4, not a part of, but witnessed basically 3 out of the 4.
That's actually crazy.
That's insane. I'm like, and I would not live with, like, that would be crazy, like nightmares for days.
I just say you've seen both that. That's
Crazy.
crazy.
So he gets assassinated, and then, in my opinion, one of the best presidents. So his vice president takes over, Teddy Roosevelt.
I do. Teddy Roosevelt's.
Teddy Roosevelt.
One of my
I had to write a
favorites.
paper about him in college. I learned a lot. He's a good president,
Right.
and really well liked. And America kind of just goes down the booming past. And we'll pick up next week about World War One, and we'll talk about that next week, though.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Or hopefully learn some stuff. That's always, our goal with this. Obviously, when we decided to do some history stuff, I love history, especially U.S. history. Some of the stuff I knew, some of the stuff I learned as I was doing the research,
Right,
which is
yeah.
always cool.
And it's good, like, obviously you might know the overall scope of, North versus South, but just the details of how it went down, like 23,000 people died in one day, like, that's a lot, so pretty cool stuff you get to learn.
I think the two, like, when you look at the Civil War, you look at some of this time period, it's honestly some of the darkest time in American history.
I would say, yeah.
Right? Because if you think about a lot of the wars that we fight for freedom, right? That's the Revolution War. World War I, we kind of just come in at the end. We helped them wrap it up, right? World War II, we were one of the big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're fighting, like Hitler doesn't take over the world, right? Vietnam, we won't talk about that. Vietnam was bad. But, like, you go through all this other stuff where when America fights, you're fighting for what you think is right.
Mm-hmm.
Civil War, yes, you're both thinking what you're right. You think slavery's good. you think slavery's bad, and you fought, but you're all Americans.
Right.
And so, yeah, that is some of the darkest period of U.S. Like, yes. But
Fighting amongst yourself.
yes.
Dividing yourself.
It's crazy.
That's not good. No.
And I think sometimes people want to say that didn't happen. But I said, no. You got to learn from your past so we don't make the same mistake in the future.
Right.
I will live by that.
Or erasing it, too. Is
Right.
like, oh, we can't talk about it. Like, not that you should endorse it or whatever, but you should,
Right.
Remember it, have monuments to remember, let's not do this again. Or, subtle reminders to honor people that have fought.
Yeah.
At least try to do what they should.
Here's what's crazy, right? Back then and now, you look at Robert E. Lee. So Robert E. Lee, the National Cemetery, Arlington Cemetery.
Yeah.
That was his house. That was his land. After he decided to go with the South and they lost, they took it from him and made it a national cemetery.
Right.
Basically almost like rubbing in your face. Like, we're going to bury our men on your land.
That's crazy.
And if you look at, people have taken down Robert E. Lee statues here in the last 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm going to tell you. Yes. Was he on the losing side? Yes. I don't even know if he was he really pro-slavery? Maybe. But really,
Maybe.
he was just a Virginian who they decided as a whole to be pro-slavery. Does that still make him still a bad general? No. I still think that's probably still one of the best generals we've ever had.
Right.
It's like, tactically, I'm not saying maybe he was,
His beliefs were
maybe
great,
his
yeah.
beliefs were like, maybe he was pro-slavery. I don't know that much. But I can tell you, he was a good general. His tactics, great.
Right.
The only reason the South had any chance was because of him. And I'm not saying I wanted the South to win. I'm not saying that. But to try to erase that stuff, that's wrong,
Right, exactly.
in my opinion.
And he's named after a car. Dukes of Hazzard is named after him.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's a great car.
It is a great car. But yeah, so that's going to be our wrapping up for the
Yeah.
history part. And we only got a little bit more, and then we'll be done.
Yep, we're closing it out pretty soon.
Yeah.
All right, we got Caleb's top 5. Might be my favorite one you've done yet. This is going to be a good one.
So to kick off our top 5 of like the best sporting events, I went number 5. I went the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And I think, honestly, the World Cup could be higher. But with it being only 4 years, I think people, I won't say, like, if you're not really a big soccer fan, I think you kind of forget. And maybe that's also, if you're a huge soccer fan, you're like, man, I can't wait for the World Cup.
Right.
But I think watching it this past summer, it's a great event. A lot of soccer, a lot of good games. Mm-hmm. I think people really get into it. The world comes together.
Like you say, it's a world sport. It's not just, NBA where it's just state versus state or,
Right.
country,
Yeah.
It's every country for the most part.
It's funny. I saw this funny thing about the World Cup, or about, Ohio State and Michigan. Why do you hate each other? We're like close in
Yeah.
state. You go to World Cup. Why do you hate that country? Oh, they try to take our freedom. And you're like, whoa, like that's like way different.
That is way different.
Like, they try to take us over.
So now we're going to beat them on the soccer
Now we're
field.
going to beat them on the soccer field. So
That's
like,
hilarious.
that's hysterical.
That is.
But yeah, World Cup, I like it. It's just, I think it's kind of lower on my list just because of...
Do you think it's just the sport itself? Like, it's
True.
Soccer can be...
That is true. Because I think if, like, imagine, like, I won't say, you can't say, like, oh, what if football did this? Like, almost no country has football except for us. Like, that
Right.
wouldn't work. And so soccer, it works because, like, obviously it's, like, the biggest sport in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the biggest sport in America. So, like, obviously
Right.
that makes it different.
I say in a different country.
This is probably, like, number one.
Football, there's
Well, no,
soccer is-
especially if you watch all these fans come to America, like this year. There's a lot of fans from all these countries, and I'm thinking, going, hold on, you're from like a South American country, where I'm guessing you make probably not a lot of money. How are you affording to go to America for a month? I'd like to know.
Yeah, I would like to know that as well.
Now, are you like, hey, we had to save our money for 4 years? Or your country's like, hey, we gave you like, I don't know that answer.
I guess, the government of their country could have, hey, here's $2,000 dividend or whatever.
Yeah.
Travel, see it.
I don't, because I'm like, how do you take a month off of work? Because if you look at a lot of this, maybe those stands were full
They were pretty full.
from those countries. That's wild to me.
That is wild to me, too.
But anyways, going to number 4, I said the World Series. Obviously, I'm a baseball guy at heart.
Yep.
I think playoff baseball is really good. It just means more.
It does, yeah.
I think the World Series, you have the 2 best teams. I think that's really good. Obviously, it could be...
Depends on the matchup, too, I think.
Very true. Sometimes...
You have a smaller market team.
Sometimes people like rooting for the underdog.
Right.
Sometimes I think you look at baseball now, people are just rooting against the Dodgers. So
Right, yeah, exactly.
as long as they don't win, I think people are happy.
Right.
But I still think it's good because now you kind of have the 2 hottest team in baseball's hard to just we got lucky. No, baseball you have to go win a 3-game or you have to go win a 5-game series and then a 7-game series, and then in the World Series you have to go win 7 times. Or in the World Series you have to win 4 out of the 7.
Yeah.
You're not getting lucky 4 times.
Nah.
You might get lucky one of the games, not 4 times.
Yeah.
And so I think that just it adds pressure, right?
Yeah, it does.
So I think that's cool.
I think it's funny. Last year it was either you vote for LA or you vote for Canada. People were like, yeah, I go to LA, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of funny.
And if you watch that matchup,
Canada.
Toronto, I thought Toronto was going to win.
They
And I might have been really rooting for. I like some of the people in Toronto. I don't care. It's Canada.
Vladimir Guerrero
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
But it's wild.
Yep.
This is where I think things get a little juicy. I think some people can kind of vote or kind of manage this a little bit different. But I went number 3 for the Super Bowl, and here's why.
Yeah.
I think the NFL playoffs are sometimes really good, but I also think the NFL sometimes has teams that are clearly better than each other, clearly better. And so I feel like the last couple of years, those games haven't always been in the Super Bowl. So the one,
absolutely not. No.
the one year where you're it's the Chiefs and the Bills or the Chiefs and the Bengals. That wasn't the Super Bowl.
No,
and so
never
then,
played games.
this past year, who was it? Seattle and
Patriots.
No, Seattle and the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
I sat there and went, whoever.
No, that was a much better game.
Whoever wins this is going to beat the Patriots. I said
Right.
that from the get go.
Right.
And so I feel like the Super Bowl was still
Yeah, their games were awesome.
right.
They were
and I
electric.
feel like that's what the NFL is kind of hey, these 2 teams over here are really good. This team over here is good. These two teams feel like a better game than when the winner of this. And so I feel like the Super Bowl is cool. It's obviously one of the biggest marketing events in the world. And obviously because people don't like watching commercials, I think that's become a less of a deal. But you still see some cool stuff.
So, yeah, everybody puts on the good commercial for that day, yeah.
Now, I do think the Super Bowl, you can't even afford. The average fan can't afford to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's and I think that's one of the problems I have is you have average, you have the typical fan the whole season, and then when you get to the big game, they're like, yeah, I can't afford to go watch my team in this.
No.
That's not right.
No, that's not right.
But still, I think it's a cool event. Obviously, it wraps up. NFL season is maybe one of the best. Kind of just wraps it up.
I think it's too, it's a more of a culture, pop culture with the halftime show.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it's almost, I almost don't even feel like it's about the sport half the time. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that too. Sometimes I think the Super Bowl is so made up to be a big deal.
The commercials, the singers,
outside of the football.
Yeah, the football game is a very small part of that in terms of all these other sports. It's barely a part of it. I feel like so. Yeah.
Very true.
Okay.
I think it's very ironic, I think, for 1 and 2 here, but going to number 2, I said the college football playoffs.
It's become very big.
I know that's not really an event, but I couldn't just say the final because I guess I'll say the whole playoffs because those are more of events.
Right.
I think going to 12 teams obviously went from, hey, we only having 3 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Semifinal, final, to you watch, especially I think the first year they did this and you have Ohio State, I wasn't there, but watching it on TV. And then we had
electric.
Right? You get to host a playoff game in the shoe. That's electric. You get to go watch these other bigger colleges host home playoff. Mm-hmm. Those are great. And then
into bowl games.
And then you go into bowl games.
Yeah.
And I think that's very cool. And so I think college football, from that, yes, did they do it for money? Yeah, probably. But I think at the same time,
it's good for competition.
It's great for competition. And let's be real. If you think about this, Miami last year, what were they? Ranked 10th?
Yeah.
They make it to a final. If this was the previous years, Miami's not playing for a national championship. They're not even in the playoffs.
Right, yeah.
You know, so I think when they went to 12 teams, no matter if you think that's too many, not enough, whatever, cool. It does allow teams like Miami, hey, we might have slipped up a game or two
Right.
in the regular season. I think they lost to Duke in the, no. Yes. Did they lose to Duke in the ACC? I think they might have.
I think they did, yeah.
And so, like, that drops them back. Like, if you did that before, you're not even in contention
Right.
for the playoffs. Well, now you sneak in, and guess what? You got hot.
I think with the 4, it was almost perfect seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, more than
Yeah.
that, it's 12. You at least drop a game or two.
Yeah.
You can still rally and make a good playoff run. Yeah. So
Look,
I agree.
look at Ohio State. Ohio State, when they won the national championship, you lose to Michigan. You're what? Undefeated? No, lose to Oregon
Right. Yeah.
by 1. You lose to Michigan.
That hurt. Yeah.
Not playing for a Big Ten championship.
No.
You don't make the playoffs.
No.
If it's 4, you're not making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And now you do, and now you win a national championship.
Yeah. So I think that makes a good case for there's better teams outside the top 4.
Yeah. And so I think
Individual.
it's a great event.
I mean, do you remember that one? Was it Michigan versus TCU? Michigan kills TCU, right?
In the national championship?
Yeah.
That was the year before.
Right. Okay, was it? I was thinking there was one where it may have been. Yes, it was. But didn't Georgia?
Also kill TCU?
Yeah, like.
Yeah.
So that was.
Stupid.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not saying TCU was a fraud, but
Well, what happened that year is you had Georgia and Ohio State,
yeah,
where
Georgia in the Ohio State game was
electric,
better. Yeah,
way
it
better.
was.
And then you had Michigan and TCU, where TCU beat Michigan,
Right.
and then Georgia smacks TCU.
Right.
And you're just sitting there going, if TCU probably had to play somebody, like, let's say TCU was like, what were they? They're the 4. 4. They were the 4.
Probably.
Because I think they beat Michigan, who was the 1. I think.
I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm kind of tripping up on that too.
Whatever.
But yeah.
Whatever. If they had to go play a team from the SEC or whoever, they might have lost in the
Probably early round.
the early round. And so I think that does make it. You kind of get the real, like, who's actually the good team.
True.
Because see, think about it. If you don't get a bye, you have to win 4 games. That's not easy.
Mm-mm.
You know, and I think that will be interesting to
Do
see.
you think it's good for the conference champions to be placed in it automatically? So that to me is kind of like, I mean,
I don't mind that.
Maybe.
Because I don't mind having automatic bids for. Because here's the thing: you're the big conferences. Again, I'm torn because, like, you look at Ohio State, yeah, you should get an automatic bid. If you win the Big Ten, you deserve that.
yeah, SEC, same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. But where I struggle is with how big some of these like even the Big Ten.
Yeah, we're getting big.
No, but like even with the Big Ten, what if you have a team like Wisconsin? I don't know this for a fact. What if they get to go play some of the easier teams? Like, you're not playing
Right.
Oregon and Indiana and
No.
USC or UCLA. Like, let's say you get to go. I don't know their schedule, but let's say just for this argument, we get to go play like Minnesota and Maryland and Northwestern, and all of a sudden they're in the Big Ten championship game, and you're just sitting there going, this team might have had like one good win on their schedule.
Right.
And let's say you get lucky and you beat whoever's in the other side.
Big
That's
Ten
if it's Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, whoever. Now again, you beat a good team one time.
Yeah, true.
You're now in the playoffs. That team's probably going to lose.
Hopefully you don't get embarrassed
Right.
in the playoffs. That's all I can say.
But yes, I think it's a little bit more fair. I don't mind the automatic. I don't mind that because here's the thing: for you to get into your conference championship game, you had to win. Mm-hmm. That's still hard to do.
It is very hard. Yeah.
And you still had to beat another good team to win that. So I don't mind that because basketball has the automatic.
Right.
But now, and so I don't mind that.
You also have to be fair with the poll. Like they're not really vote. They vote on, hey, look at their strength of schedule and all that stuff, and they put teams in. So honestly, it's probably better than somebody voting, NCAA
voting, they can say whatever
It's
they
like-
want. Voting has some very bias to it.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
They can say, "Oh, here's look at the numbers." Shut up.
Yeah.
You're biased.
Yeah.
No matter if it's why you're biased or who you're
Yeah.
biased.
Well, their strength of schedule, it's like, the strength of schedule meant nothing, or, yeah. So it's probably better to have outright winners be in it than committee voting on it.
For
That's
sure.
probably better.
And then obviously, number one, I think March Madness.
All time.
I think it meant more when you're in school, in my opinion. I think it's still very cool to this day, but like, there's nothing better. And now they took it away because obviously you can't have your phones in school anymore. But I remember, like, you're sitting about, for me, you're towards the end of the day, right? It's about that 12:30 game. For me, I was like in sixth period, and it's on your phone.
Oh, yeah.
Or you get an awesome teacher that.
I just say a lot of teachers are very cool, and they just leaned into it like, hey,
Yeah.
let's try and do something. But if you're watching games,
Yeah.
we did it. You know what I mean?
I think that alone is a great feeling. Obviously that first weekend, right? Thursday, Friday, like that first. There's
games at noon to 11 or whatever
Yeah.
it is. Like,
I think there's nothing better. I think that event. Never been to. Like, here's the sad part. I've never been to any of these. Like, in person.
And, my brother told me he went to the game where Purdue was the number one seed, got knocked out. 'Cause it was in Ohio.
That's great.
It was I think Dayton or something.
It might have been in Columbus.
It may have been Nationwide Arena. Now that I think about it. Yeah, Purdue got beat. That was fans were just going crazy. And I do think it's like, obviously, like you said, March Madness, college football, college. I think there's just such a genuine love for the game that they're playing. Even with NIL, people, NIL might not help it, but it's still.
Well, no.
Athletes are doing it for the love of the game.
Here's what it is. And maybe this takes away from March Madness, but it makes college football better.
Mm-hmm.
NIL has made the big dogs.
Right.
There's not these underdog stories. March Madness, that's what made March Madness.
Right.
Where now you're seeing, like, no, the best people are going to the best schools.
Right.
Because of money. And these little Cinderella stories. If you go win your conference, let's say you get beat in the round of 64.
Right.
If your best player can come back, and let's say he had a great, like, hey, we got beat by 20.
Mm-hmm.
But man, my man over there had 20.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to run.
Puts him on the stage, yeah.
Puts him on a stage, but instead of coming back to that little school, somebody's going to write him a little fat check and go, come to Kentucky or come to Ohio State, come to Indiana, come to Purdue, whatever. Instead of, if I'm a coach, and same thing with, and obviously same thing with coaches. If this coach is going, this guy had a great year, he's been here for 3 years, he gave, let's say, Michigan a run for their money, still lost.
Right.
Gave them a run for their money. He must be a good coach.
Right.
Bye-bye, coach. Now he leaves to go take a big job.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Same thing with players. Is you're not building. It's like, okay, hey, this little sophomore guy dropped 30 against Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
They win, they lose. Who cares?
He's a good ball player.
He's a good ball player. Instead of him going, I'm coming back for my junior year, it's like, okay, I'm transferring to Florida.
Right.
That happens way more now, and that's kind of taking away somewhat of the Cinderella because those teams lose as players.
Right.
Now, I saw a thing where some of the commissioners or like the people, or not commissioners, are like, what if we get money for you taking our players? Like, hey, if we're going to find them and develop them, we should get a cut. And I'm like,
just to help them out, yeah, that'd be all right.
Yeah.
I don't mind that either.
Help them kind of restock.
Retool, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do, like you said, yeah. But there will always be, like you said, one of them kids from, a Cinderella story that just goes off, like Miami last year, Miami of Ohio. I don't know, should they've been there or whatever, but it's like great games. What was it? High Point weren't ranked very high, but had a great team. Like, I think, like you said, you're going to have some top-heavy teams, but at least it's like there is still
here's
some younger talent.
The point of March Madness, it might not actually happen, but we're trying to predict if upsets do happen.
True, yeah, true.
And so now you're sitting on the edge of your seat like, oh my gosh, I have Purdue losing. I need them to lose. And at the next time you're like, man, I need Kentucky to win. Don't get upset, you know? And I think It's a great experience.
Oh, it is, yeah. And there is a lot of, great games.
Great game.
I don't think there's never a dull game on.
For me, that's also a great time of the year because for my personal life, in March, from like that, we're just practicing softball, and so you're like, it gives you a little something to do.
True, yeah.
We're not into games yet. It's kind of like, okay, you're coming out of the winter. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Yeah. And college basketball is, to me, the purest form of basketball. It's sets and good coaching and relies on the program, and like you said, like NBA,
it's about
I don't even know if they need coaches half the time. It's like, who cares? In college, great coaches lead teams and good players make big plays,
Yeah. But yeah, that's my
list.
top 5.
That's a great list.
Let us know if you guys disagree, agree, anything like that, guys.
Yeah. I'll just say, what other sports events can you think of? Like,
the Olympics, I have no idea.
Yeah, true.
You have like the World Baseball Classic is something that some people get into. The Masters I thought about. The Masters
is pretty good.
Different like racing events.
True.
Daytona.
Daytona would be good.
I don't watch that. So.
No, I think that's good. That's a good list. All right, so wrap that up. All right, so let's get to our Bible verse of the podcast. The verse is Galations 6:9. It says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." I think this is a very good verse, encouraging to us because obviously, we're fighting the world of living in the flesh and living in the spirit. I think obviously you become a Christian, your life obviously begin to change. You want to be less like the world and more like God. Well, I think that's a really good thing. But obviously, that changes how you act, changes how people probably treat you, that changes how you treat others. I think a lot of it is like, you think of an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Like, you wouldn't do that if you're living biblically. The Bible says turn the other cheek. So you wouldn't, get your revenge or something like that. And so this is talking about that, kind of continue to do good. Even though somebody doesn't treat you right, even though they're rude, cruel, even though they might deserve a punch in the mouth. Hey, people sometimes do deserve it, but it's not for our place to do that. So let's not weary and listen to God's word. So that's going to counter a lot of what, the world tells us, or, hey, if you cheat, you can do good, get a better grade. If you lie, you get more money. Like, anything like that, that's not helping you. But it says, at the proper time, you'll reap a harvest. What's the harvest is being rewarded for doing that good. And that's kind of the hard thing is like you think, well, I do good, I'm not rewarded. That's not worth it. You know what I mean? But at a proper time, which I think, God shows up, at the right time, perfectly, that you will, at that right time, be rewarded. Like if, you think, you want a girlfriend, you don't, do the things that you should, well, you're probably not going to get the greatest woman. Or if you, aren't the best worker, your job that you want might not be a good job. So if you might not do good work or whatever, but if you do, and you might not get the job that you want right away, but at proper time, you will get blessings and just be fruitful with what God has for you.
Man, I totally agree, man. I think you are pretty spot on. I think people want it now.
Yeah, true.
Right? And so you think, I did good. Where's my reward? And I think we live in a very society where they do stuff just for a reward. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, right? I'm living that in my own life. It's like, I want stuff now. Like, my patience and a lot of stuff is really not good. Like, no, that's not true. I have pretty good patience with people. Right. But patience of stuff that you want. Right. So not like...
I just feel like you do deserve it.
Yeah. Right. You're like, hey, I'm doing good. Or not even I'm doing good. It's like, okay, this is going good. I want this now.
Mm-hmm.
And my patience in that, like, and I think you're actually, I think you're right. I think we live in a society that is very heavy on that. And sometimes.
And like you say, you might say, it might be a comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm better than them. Why am I not getting what they have or whatever? And it's like, obviously you can't say, like, why they have it. That's not really for us to decide. But, you look at a lot of things, it can be a comparison of, well, I'm better than them or whatever. And it's like, I always think, like, what they have is not meant for you. You know what I mean? Not you, but myself,
Yeah.
So it's not really for me to decide how good of something they have. It's more or less just continue to live like God wants you to live.
And I think sometimes he doesn't give it to us right away because he's not a genie, right? He's not granting wishes.
No.
And sometimes, like this verse, we reap what you should, like, you get you can reap a harvest if you do not give up.
Yeah.
Sometimes people give up. They're like, okay, Lord, I want a wife.
Yeah.
Well, then when you don't get a girlfriend within a month, some people are like, God, you failed me.
Yeah.
But guess what? If you stay patient, you stay level-headed,
Right.
you stay...
The man of God that you should be.
Yeah, the man of God that God wants you to be. God might go, good job, after a year.
Right.
He might go, good job after 5 years, which sucks.
However long it takes you, your heart to become better, yeah.
And I think that's so key. And trust me, I've been in that boat where I'm like, God, like, I would love to have a wife.
Yeah.
But then I also think, too, like, I have no money. Am I quite the man of God that I should be to be able to lead a wife? Sometimes in my life, sometimes.
And there's nothing wrong with going, hey, I'm not in the position. And now you go, okay, God, set me up something to help me to be in that, more money, better job, capable of providing. Then, now you're like, all right, I did good. Yeah, you did the thing you should. Now you will reap a harvest. Yeah. It's never like you don't deserve it. It's that there are things that maybe aren't aligned that you need to get right. Or, I think that, like you say, am I in a position to provide, take care of? Nope. So you need to get that right first, and do it well, do it good, and treat people fairly, do things, morally, and then later you will reap a harvest. So I like this verse, good. The whole Galations is good stuff. It talks about fruits of the Spirit, everything like that. So that's our verse for the day.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys listening in. We tried to be a little bit shorter, even though it feels like we still went for
a little bit,
an hour and a half. Yep, but we tried to be a little bit quicker. I think that just shows how comfortable we're getting on the pod, getting on camera, stuff like that. So we're doing pretty good. But thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, have a great week. God bless.